Welcome to today's Q&A topic, building your personal leadership brand. I have with me Mr. Sundar Kondur, Senior Vice President at Times Group. Given his 25 years of experience in the media industry and having led large teams across businesses, Sundar is a person very apt to discuss what it takes to identify with yourself and from there go on to build a USP, as they say, and a personal brand. Sundar previously was with the Hindu, Midday, India Today, Sterling Holidays, where he has led large teams in sales and marketing, in building brands and selling to brands through storytelling. In fact, he was instrumental in launching Midday and the Mirror newspaper brand successfully in Bangalore in the late 2000s. His colleagues describe him as a pillar of strength, a mentor, a natural leader, one who's energetic, eloquent, and maintains calm and composure in tough times. His family and friends know him as a very fun-loving and outdoors person, a lifelong foodie, and an amateur storyteller. Welcome, Sundar, to this very interesting Q&A on a Saturday morning. Thank you for your time today.
Good morning, Pawan, and good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for, first of all, inviting me to come and speak about my experiences, and thanks so much, all of you, for devoting some time on your Saturday morning to be with us.
Right.
Look
So,
forward.
Sundar, we spoke about why building a personal brand, especially in the leadership context, is very very critical. And let me share my views around this. And if you ask someone to describe a person with a compelling leadership brand, they often struggle initially to explain why the person is so effective. And maybe because everything that we do, say, everything that we do at work, at home, creates a brand that we eventually become known for. And a strong personal leadership brand allows us to kind of bring in that powerful and effective element about the leaders that we are and show that to our colleagues and people at work, people where we stay. And it also enables us to generate that maximum value. And for others, creating a brand, I believe, is the world's most golden opportunity. And it makes taking an active role in what you project to the world and what kind of results you want to get. I think it's also a constant effort to look up from our work, from our day-to-day duties, and ask ourselves, is what I'm doing in line with the leader that I want to become? And I think this kind of introspection can really overwhelm us most times when other priorities, also begin to compete. So, Sundar, what do you think are your views on this? And I would love to take those questions as we go along today in this Q&A.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks, Pawan. I'll try and narrate some of my life experiences in my journey, what I've learned, maybe what I've done wrong and learned from it, and what somebody else has taught me. So let me just take you through that. Your first one was, is it necessary to build a leadership brand? Probably yes, but I leave it to everybody else to decide that once we speak about it for a bit. Have I made a conscious decision to build a brand? I don't think so, at least not from my side. But a few things that I do seems to sort of resonate well with colleagues, friends, and some business associates as well. Okay, so when you just sort of put in into Google as to what a leader is, or if you do an image search, you just get visions of great people, political leaders, sports people, thought leaders, army commanders, and so on and so forth. So people in people's minds, it's sort of stereotyped. Seeing big political leaders giving speeches, you see big maybe the Alexander the Great kind of people or legends, CEOs of top-notch companies. They come in and they say, okay, he seems to be a great leader, and they sort of perceive them to be a great leader basis what they have done or what they have achieved, uh, which probably is right. But if you go back and look at what they have done in terms of what actions they may have taken, which has led them to what they have become today, you'll realize that some of them have probably an innate quality in them, which then you can probably say whether they're born with it, or whether they hone those skills, or did they suddenly become accidental leaders. Sometimes that also happens with situations. But I feel a good leader is somebody who has what you call uh, very clearly defined purpose in life. And I think everything else sort of falls into place once you know why you exist and what you should do about it. And since he spoke about leadership brand, so let me just separate these two for a bit and maybe explain it. For example, let's look at brand for a minute. For example, if you look at today's world, everybody is building brands. And I think it's become far more easier now compared to before, because the advent of media has become quite big, and the advent of social media is helping people build huge brands. But brands' life is very short lived unless they clearly define what the brand purpose is as to why
Right.
they exist in today's world. And I think that will hold them in good stead for many, many, many years. Would you like to give me some example, Bhavan?
So let's take, for example, Apple and Geo. Two distinct brands, one globally international, one trying to become globally international, given the kind of investments they're getting. What are your views on that then?
Yeah, you spoke about a great brand. So let me just spend a minute on Apple. For example, Apple makes terrific computers. They started off making terrific computers, and then they moved into the iPod and phone and so on and so forth. If you look at Apple, it is if you look at the mobile phone, for example, it is Apple versus others. The entire world believes in two systems. One is the Apple system and the Android system. But today, Apple brand is a cult brand, and they've really grown strength to strength. It's an extremely profitable brand. They have huge communities that go after the brand. There's a huge tribe following that they have.
Yeah.
How did it happen? It happened, in my opinion, it happened because Apple did not come out and say when they launched their computer first,
Right.
they did not say, "We make great computers, please buy me." They said, "We believe in challenging the status quo." They said, "We believe in being different." They said, "We want to challenge the status quo, be different, also make beautiful products that are easy to use." So that becomes their brand purpose. And everything that they do follows that brand purpose, which is why you notice that even today, if you look at their phones, every year or maybe a couple of times a year, they keep upgrading their phones, changing their phones, and every time the entire community is waiting for Apple to launch because something new is going to happen. And how did
True.
that happen? It happened because they want to challenge the status quo. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have a purpose, and if that purpose is very clearly defined, whatever that you do will follow that purpose.
True.
So people do not
Right.
they do,
And
they challenge the status quo and they buy it for that reason.
true, true. I think what you said was so true because Apple has something called what we call the intrinsic value, right? Like you said, we're kind of bound to upgrade it, we are bound to stick with it, and we're bound to go with it even if tomorrow I want to shell out another $300 at the end of the day, right? Even if they upgrade to a 12 or 14 in the next few years. So a lot of people tell me it's also attached to perception. And like you said, everybody's on social media today. We're talking about putting ourselves in a virtual world. And I have often leaders wondering, especially with their teams and clients, thinking that, others are, anyway going to make up their minds about me. I can't control their views. Do you think perception is the start off point to all this? And is it really what it defines the way that I want to step into this, becoming a leader or becoming, branding myself? You've been in the media entertainment industry. You know how brands are perceived today. So, what do you think of that?
Yeah, so perception is a very large part, and sometimes you can help what people perceive you to be or the brand to be, but sometimes you can't. But that's okay. But if you follow your purpose and if you have a very very clear vision, it's like this. No, they say if you're very clear as to where you want to go, you know which road to take. But if you're not very clear as to where you want to go, you can take any road and go any which way to achieve that. And then I think that in the short term will probably help you to succeed, but in the long run, people will see you for what you are. For example, just look at another, this industry or fashion industry, or
Right.
let's say, it's extremely competitive thing, and it's always built on beliefs. It's always built on perceptions. For example, somebody goes and pays top dollar for a personal care product, not by saying it does, it's red in color, or it makes you look fair, and so on and so forth. It's because it sells dreams to you. So it's a perception they do. But among all this, I love a particular brand called Dove. You know, because Dove has said beauty should not be an anxiety. Beauty is something that you should embrace, which means
Mm.
they have gone back and said told people, they said, do not suffer from low self-esteem and anxiety, which a lot of young girls and ladies feel, and they said be comfortable to yourself. And Dove stands for people who want to be absolutely comfortable with their own beauty, with their own the way they look and the way they behave, and so on and so forth. So whatever that Dove does will always reflect that, be comfortable with who you are and what you are. No, now, so which means that they're telling you, people may have whatever perception about you, but you can believe what you feel comfortable with and what you are happy with. And I think that is a great purpose of the brand to have. And then the way people perceive it is also absolutely great. For example, look at another one. Another great brand I love personally is Nike. Nike believes if you have a body, you can be an athlete. You can just move and just say go and do it. So it doesn't matter what people perceive you to be. You can probably have maybe some injury, or you could be challenged in many ways. But you think if you have a body, just go and do it. It doesn't matter what people perceive you to be, but you can make a difference and keep going.
Right. So let me kind of slightly take that point a little more further. There is also about what we call and I think you're aware of it, subtly marketing something. But there is a school of thought which also believes that जो ज़्यादा दिखता है वो बिकता है, right? So there is also the in the face marketing or branding that companies do, and also people do on social media, right? Whether you like it or not, and there are lots of them. But which school of thought do you subscribe to? Do you think, well, there should be more consistency in the way a brand is put out, especially the people side of the brand, or there should be a lot more, like I said, in the face, coming in every day talking about something. What do you think are your views on that?
Yeah, so it's like this. So very very good question, Pavan. So let me try and answer it from what I understand. See, in branding and in communication, what I largely call, there are two kinds of communication. One is what we like to call as the scheme, and one is the theme. And let me just tell you, in my perception, what is theme. Theme is your brand purpose and your brand communication, what you stand for, and so on and so forth, the emotional appeal. Scheme is basically saying, I have 10% of come and buy me, or I have
Right.
40% of come and buy me.
Right.
So for scheme, you have to be on your face and communicate a message saying, come and buy me because I'm giving a discount, because I'm not being able to sell, or whatever it is. A true brand does not be on your face with that. Uh, you know, uh, and it will continue to sell. Obviously, there are tough times when they have to probably give a discount for old stocks and stuff like that. But on your face communication can keep happening, and in the short term, it helps. But in the long term, people are smart enough to understand their brand's value, be it a physical product or be it a leader.
Correct. Correct. And I think, yeah, I think it's important that there is a fine balance. Um, so there is also a thought about people or leaders already thinking that, hey, you know what, I already have a personal leadership style. But how do you identify then if it's the right one? I mean, I'm sure you have your own anecdotes or life's journeys or things that you have done, which probably or intuitively you thought that this is the way I should be doing it. And over a period of time, you were able to build that leadership brand that people were able to look up to, right?
Yeah, so this is a tough one. But let me take it. See, there's no right or wrong leadership brand. If you ask me, I think
Right.
everybody's fine. Everybody is doing what they think is right, and it's all fine. But different situations call for a different leadership style. So, for example, I have huge respect for the armed forces. By the way, if you look at the armed forces, and because of the kind of work they do, not work duty more, what they do, and they work in extremely difficult and very tense and dangerous situations. They're very closed unit, and they just believe what the leader says absolutely, and there's no questioning. There's no democracy in terms of when somebody's giving you an order when you are out on a mission. You don't sit down and say, hey, you know what, let's sort of get a consensus on this. No, it doesn't work that way. So what the leader says is absolutely, it's a command, right? And rightfully so. So let me just give an example of what happens there. Now, years of experience and training will take you to one particular place, but you can't predict every situation. So something will happen there which will make you have to take a decision based on something, right? What is that something? So the commander takes a decision based on years of training, his experience, and what I call the gut feel. Now, what is the gut feel? Gut feel is your experience plus your belief system of saying I need to save my team of people who are with me, save my country, defend, and so on and so forth. So there's an element which even normal people we do in our regular workplace as well. And so I think a combination of what I call bookish knowledge and theories that we have learned, which is good, but I think we need to interspeed that with what I call the gut feel, which is the value system that you believe in, your goals, and combine that with the experience that you've had. So together, I think is what helps you take the decision, and then it can't be the same every time. And so different leaders will behave differently,
Right.
and I think most of them are right.
Sure. So, give us an example of your own, of your own experience of having been in a situation which could where you probably intuitively, instinctively took a decision, and I think that was like the turning point in building what they call as a leadership for yourself.
Um, Okay, I wouldn't say a big situation, but I think a couple of big lessons that I personally learned, and I think it still helps me, that experience and what I went through. Launches in our industry and any industry for that matter are very tough because you do days and months of preparation, and then when you go and launch something, and still things can go wrong, and
Right.
you need to sort of go forward. So one experience is, when in my previous company, my MD of my company said, "So let's launch this brand in Bangalore, newspaper brand." And I said, "Yeah, sure. So how do we hire and who should we hire?" He said, "No, I'm making you the publisher." And I said, "To do what?" He said, "No, you'll handle everything." I said, "But I don't know anything about printing technology. I don't know anything about distribution routes and so on and so forth." He said, "Yeah, just sign up, learn it, go ahead." So he said, you just need to know a little bit about it. And I said, when I started doing it, I realized that little bit is not enough. You need to get in completely, because if you have to lead a team and if you need to get their respect and to go ahead, you need to understand what they're doing, you need to understand what pains they're going through so that you can empathize with them, understand their challenges, and try and see if you can find a solution for them, and more importantly, get them all together as one unit, because I think you're only as good or as bad as your team. And I think at all times we all need to work together to make it happen. So that was one life-changing moment for me, and which I still hold in very high step. The second was when I was made the head of a language newspaper of the Times Group in Bangalore, Vijay Karnataka, and I'm not a Kannadiga, right? And I could just speak a couple of words to just get myself by. And I realized that 95% of my entire team, and it was a very large team, 200 odd people, were all Kannadigas spread across Karnataka. And I was selling an audience of Karnataka to people outside, to large advertisers. And I said it's extremely important for me to understand this culture. I can get by life, but for me to become an effective leader, I need to inspire the team, understand the team, understand the local landscape better. So I made it a point, Pavan. So I got a tutor to come and teach me Kannada for a month, and I learned
Wow.
Kannada.
Okay.
And I managed to travel 30 odd districts of Karnataka by road. And I stopped at every single eatery to understand, mingle with people, understand the local culture, the cuisine. I stayed in all kinds of places along the highway. But fantastic experience. I just enjoyed myself. But then I realized that when you lead, when you actually get your hands dirty, and when you actually relate to people at their level, you understand their issues much better, and understand, and you're able to handle the challenges much better. The market knowledge improves quite a bit for you. I think these two, among various other experiences, I would say really stands out in helping me shape a lot of what I am today
Right.
professionally.
Right. Right. And I think that also goes to say why you're a foodie and you love the cuisine, right?
It helped, yeah. It absolutely helped, yeah.
Okay. So you spoke about culture, and I really want to kind of get you to speak more about that. I also believe that the leadership brand, is embedded in an organization's culture, right? Either through the way the employees are engaged or the policies are just employee friendly. Now, what are your views on leaders being a part of that culture to drive and make both themselves as a brand and have organizations showcase themselves as a brand in the market, either for hiring or for getting more clients or just standing out today in the media.
See, I don't think anybody should consciously look at creating a brand because if it happens by default, it's fine. But that's not the driving spirit in which one should operate. I think I'm personally speaking, obviously, most of the views that you have personally and the organization may be in sync, which is why you joined there in the first place, right? Or you continue to work there in the first place. Because if you're diametrically opposite, then one of you will not be there, other the employee won't be there, or whatever. Or you're so powerful and life changing that you're able to change the organization's culture, which probably has happened, but not too many. So you're more or less in sync, and there'll be some gray areas always because not everything is the same. From your vantage point, you think certain things are right. The organization is also right that certain things need to be done because you need to sort of have a top line and bottom line. But I have believed in one thing for sure, and that is I'm a sales guy at the end of the day, and sales metrics are extremely important. Uh, you exist because of the targets that you achieve and the numbers that are put in front of you. But I haven't forgotten one thing from the time that I was a sales guy from a junior guy when I came up in life is that who puts out metrics on those Excel sheets? It's the people. The numbers don't come on Excel sheet by themselves. It's the people who get those numbers there. And I think sometimes a few people that I've met in life forget that. They forget that people put the numbers there and they ignore the people and look at the numbers only. And I think that's probably not the right thing to do. And I think the minute you know that if people are the ones who put the numbers there on the metric, the way you approach people changes. Okay,
Right.
because I think over a period of time, I think because of the fast-paced world and the serious stress that is there on targets and stuff like that, we forget we don't reward behaviors,
Correct.
we only reward outcomes. Now, for
Right.
example, the last 4 months of what we have gone through, I don't think anybody has met the targets. I don't think anybody has met the numbers. If you had
Mm.
the numbers, then none of us will have a job. But what you
Correct.
do is great leaders always look at behaviors and say, is he doing the right thing or is she doing the right thing by moving forward? Is she in the right kind of attitude? Where do they need help? Where can you step in and help them? And where can you hold their hand? Where can you support them? I think that is important to note behaviors. And I think the way the world is moving towards, I think the soft skills are becoming very, very important. And
Right.
not to forget the goal in mind, numbers are very, very important. So don't get me wrong there.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
behavior is should be seen. It's a very important metric for me,
Right.
and
So,
attitude.
so which means that if you look at, and I'll take an example and tell me your views on it. There is Steve Jobs and there is Apple. Now there is Mukesh Ambani and then there is Jio. Right. I'm going to go back to that example because if you look at Apple as a brand, you still look at Steve Jobs, and when you look at Jio now. Geo is still growing, and the kind of investments are just crazy they're getting. But you still relate to a Mukesh Ambani as a leader, right? Which one do you think is apt? Do you think a leader is in front of an organization as a brand, or the organization is reflective of a leader as a brand, right? Or is it just both?
Okay, so this is a tough one, Pawan. But anyway, let me give you my personal view on this. See, Steve Jobs, if you sort of read about him, you'll realize that he was a very tough boss. He wasn't very well liked by most people. Yeah, his own employees not very well liked, but they respected him for the genius that he was.
Yeah.
His sheer ability, skill, and what he stood for, I think, overcame the bad boss or bad behavior that he displayed in many ways. And they say that he was extremely impatient in a lot of ways because he wanted quality. He wanted that specialization to come in. If you look at Mukesh Ambani, so that was Steve Jobs. But if you look at Apple, though it is a mass brand and many people buy it, it is never sold as a mass brand. People, when they buy an Apple, they think it's for me. Okay. If you look at Mukesh Ambani and his style, they always believe in the lowest common denominator. They make brands, products for mass. It's huge. It's massive. Whatever they do is on a massive scale. They do something, it's massive scale. Okay, so on and so
Absolutely.
forth. But to specifically look at it, what is Mukesh Ambani's style of functioning? I don't think many people talk about it. I'm sure he must be having a great style, but it's not very well
Yeah.
advocated. Okay,
Yeah.
the company is known as a very large
Yeah.
company. He is known as the world's sixth richest man, and so on and so forth. But to answer your question specifically, what example comes to my mind or what I believe in is, you know, many of you have gone for music concert. Have you seen any philharmonic orchestra
Yeah.
or whatever? Huh?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
if you look at it, there are 80, 100, 200 odd people sitting there, and probably you'll have maybe 10 percussionists, 20 percussionists. You'll have let's say a couple of 20 people on the cello, maybe some on the violin, and so on and so forth. Everybody has to play a particular tune, right? It's very complex. Coordinated with 200 people, each one has to do their own stuff. And there's this one man with a baton in his hand, uh, with the conductor, who's sort of tuning them as to what each one should be doing. When they all come together, it's fantastic music that they create. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
But please note the point: the entire orchestra is facing the stage, but the conductor has got his back and is
Yeah.
looking at his team and helping
Yeah.
them to play and do the best that they can. It's
Right.
not important. It's known as the London Philharmonic Orchestra. Do you know who leads it? I don't know. Google
Yeah.
it, you'll find.
Yeah.
Point I'm
Yeah.
making is, I think a leader takes pride or should take pride, and most times they do, is when the team does extremely well.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, you're as good or as bad as as your team, and if the team is bad, I think you should take responsibility for it because you should have done something about it.
Okay. Okay. So you spoke about conducting an orchestra, and I think you also spoke about a person standing there. So I probably my next question is definitely, and I'm curious to know. There is one aspect where people talk about the physicality, right? A person standing, talking, using his pitch, tone of voice, his eye contact, all of that, the look and feel of a person, especially when he's sitting in a meeting or he's talking to somebody. They exude a certain amount of an executive presence, like they call it. But today, everything has moved from an offline handshake context to social media, right? An online presence. What do you think? And have you've been saying this in the last 4 5 months? Given that the kind of webinars, the meetings that you've been doing, what do you think leaders should do to enhance that online presence and make that connect happen within their workplace or with their clients?
Actually, it's a very tough situation, man, because handling a team remotely is very tough. Okay, it's very tough because when you're in a physical office, you can see people, you can see their body language. Is the shoulders slumped? Are they looking sort of do they need a pat on the back? Do they need some encouragement? smile, maybe a small joke when you pass them by, or have a coffee with them and stuff like that. Obviously, these things are missing the last 3 4 months to a large extent. It's very challenging to relate to people, keep them motivated. But what I try and do is to see if you can over communicate, to see if you can engage with them. And I look for signals when we do our video chats or telephone calls. I look for signs of, are they feeling a little down? Do they need a bit of a sort of, boost?
Right.
Whatever. They may be having a personal issue which they can't probably share. So I
Sure.
try and engage. Obviously, you can't understand everything, but wherever possible, I do it. But I think it's also a message that a leader gives. If you're able to communicate, and if you have been communicating with your team, that you're open to listen to them, you're open to, and they have your confidence, and you have their confidence to sort of not take the information outside, and you're willing to sort of mentor them, in some cases, coach them
Yeah.
and help them with whatever they may be having. I think it's appreciated, and I think that helps, especially in these tough times. Yeah,
Sure.
but it's
And I
difficult. It's
think,
difficult. It's all the same.
yeah, no, but I think it's also about when I think of that, the physicality or the body language. Sachin Tendulkar comes to my mind very often. I mean, at a height of 5'2", he's still able to draw the crowds, not because of his physicality. I think it's just about the presence, the perception, and the kind of body of work that he has, right?
Absolutely. Napoleon Bonaparte was supposed to be a very short man, same height.
Yeah,
Supposed to,
right.
nobody knows exact height, but he's supposed to be very short. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think it's not the. It helps to have obviously sort of a big physical presence, but I think you are what you do.
right,
You are what you stand for. You're defined by uh, who you are is defined by what you do.
right, right. So end of all, I think what you're saying is in practice, a leader can craft his or her personal leadership brand. Now, what are some of your, like must takeaways to do this and to make this as a daily ritual or a habit, and then over a period of time, doing all of these things, you're able to build a leadership brand. I think what you're going to say will really help a lot of managers, team leaders, supervisors who are experiencing a conflict within themselves, so to say, saying that what do I need to do? Because building a brand, yes, I want to become a brand, but what do I need to do in the next, 2 to 3 years? But on a daily basis, what are simple takeaways that you would suggest?
Sure. Whatever I can contribute, I will. But let me just give you a difference in creating a brand. So I just want to make a point very, very clearly. See, today, thanks to social media, a lot of people can create brands. You can genuinely sort of have followers on, let's say, a LinkedIn or a Instagram, Facebook, and so on and so forth. Right? What work you do there, people like it, and then they'll follow you. There are
Okay.
also cases where people buy followers. It's been exposed in the Times of India a couple of days back. Big scam in Bombay where people have been buying followers, and there are companies who do that. So I'm saying, so that's one extreme bad case of people wanting to buy followers and building a brand, and it becomes that's it's a bad space to be in. But it's essential to build a brand if you want to do something with the brand. Otherwise, why would you build a brand, right?
Right.
If you look at, for example, an inspiring leader for me is Martin Luther King. Way back in the 60s, and we all know what he stood for. He stood for a particular purpose. I go back to my initial, what I mentioned, saying everybody needs to have a purpose. And I think that purpose comes out very, very clearly in what you do.
Correct.
In 1960s, he said, he gave a very famous speech, I have a dream, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's very well known. Do you know that uh, close to 3 lakh people descended on Washington just to hear him speak? He didn't have a social media. He didn't put out an ad in the newspaper. He didn't go out and announce it on TV, taking billboards and saying, I'm going to give a speech. Why don't you just show up and whatever? He didn't. He had a purpose, and people knew what is the purpose that he stood for. And I go back to say, I think if you have a purpose, and if that purpose is well defined, and what you do shows that purpose, and I think automatically you will become a sort of a brand. You don't
Sure.
need to create a brand by itself. But let me just tell you some takeaways that I personally So I may have read a couple of management books here and there, but most of what I do is not from what I've read in a book. Most of what I do, the first philosophy that I started looking at is from a very early part of my career. I've had a couple of bad bosses. I mean, who hasn't? I'm sure you must have had, and many people must have
Yeah.
had. The first principle that I followed is I said, I will not do what I thought my bad boss did.
Sure.
Okay. So first I started. I said I won't do what I think is not right. I
Right.
think that's what about 50% of the issue by me doing things that was probably right. And somewhere along the line, I think looks like I did something right because I mean that's what I get to hear from people. So I think that's very very important. And the second thing is, I think first, if you don't know how to manage yourself, I don't think you can manage others. So
Right.
I think the first one is starts with you. What do you want in life? And I think it's what everybody wants in life. I think if you ask any human being deeply, I think the purpose that we're all looking for in life is to be happy.
Right.
That's the single biggest thing that everybody wants in life. You may do different things to get there, but ultimately everybody wants happiness. And for each one, happiness is different. Buying a car makes you happy, going on holiday makes you happy, etc., etc., etc. So I don't want to get into that. But the point is, everybody wants to be happy. So first of all, you have to manage yourself on what drives you and how will you handle yourself. Because if you can't handle yourself, I don't think you will be good at handling others. A lot of cases I've seen people when they're not able to control themselves, they're not able to handle themselves, or they're not able to love themselves, they're not able to love others. Okay,
Got it.
so I think first you have to spend a lot of time with yourself.
Yeah.
The third thing I would say is I think you should be a very good listener. But I think half the problem gets sorted out if you're able to listen to people. When I say
Hmm.
listen, I don't mean hear. I mean listen,
Got
right?
it.
Really listen. Another one I would say is empathy. It's not sympathy.
Right.
Okay, we are business leaders. We have a task at hand, yeah? But empathy. Uh, so it's very very important. And I think for me, another very very important thing is a sense of fairness. I think you should do what you feel is right, and what you feel is right could be slightly different for others. But I think most of what we feel is right, I think, stems from the way we've been brought up, the value systems that we believe in, and what our culture teaches us,
Got
and
it.
what our friends and family show us, and what the organization stands for, what is
Got it.
right.
Got
And I
it.
think once you have this 4 5 things in place, and if you are able to sort of follow this, and I would not want to sort of follow somebody else's leadership style. So I think if you
Yeah.
have the 4 5 qualities that you want to sort of embrace, believe in, I'm saying go ahead, have your own style, and do your own individual thing. I'm sure you'll do well.
Yeah.
And take
Yeah.
constant feedback.
Yeah.
Constant feedback
Absolutely.
also helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think the feedback, like you said, is actually makes it a full circle because you're starting with yourself, you're starting with the purpose in mind, you're trying to understand who you are, what you want to do, and I think end of the day, you're looking at talk to people, getting feedback, and I think that's a great circle to follow. So, Sundar, that takes us to the end of the Q&A. But I had a few Q&A, I mean, questions that came in through our social handle, people writing to me through our groups, and I'm going to take one after the other. The first question asks is, how would you as a leader rank empathy? And we spoke about it right now in the list of attributes of a good leader, right? We did speak about it now, but some additional views on that.
No, I think it's extremely important to have empathy because uh, some people confuse sympathy with empathy. Sympathy is feeling sorry for somebody. It doesn't help, right? Empathy is seeing something from somebody else's point of view,
Got it.
right? Not from your point of view, because you might think it's fine, but if you see from somebody else's point of view, I think you understand the problems a little better. Okay, and then
Right.
you're able to sort of guide them or help them or give suggestions
Right.
to them in a slightly different way. I think empathy ranks very, very high, very, very high, because that's what I said even earlier. I think we should be looking at rewarding behaviors as well as outcomes. And if you,
Got it.
you can only reward behaviors if you have empathy.
Got it. Okay. The next question is again, it's about leadership. I think people love to hear you more. So, do you as a leader draw inspiration from the world of sport as analogies as stark and fact facing?
Thank you. Yeah, sports is one of my passions as well, and I do a lot of sports as well. Uh, One recent thing comes out to me is an example of Mahendra Singh Dhoni in the
Right.
world of cricket. So apparently, this is the Indian coach. He wrote this in a blog, and I read it, and it says that apparently, it's a tough sport. So you need to sort of practice very, very often. And when they had this before any big match, they have 10, 15 days of training camps. And I believe people used to come late for team meetings, and people had a habit of coming late for practice. And it's continued for some time. And obviously, if you're not all together, it doesn't sort of mesh well. So Anil Kumble, when he was the captain, he said, "How much of you tell them they're not listening to us? So let me do one thing. Let me put a 10,000 rupee fine on anybody who comes late."
Okay.
Right. So he got that done when he was a captain. So apparently it improved a bit the percentage, but people are still coming late. Okay.
Right.
Apparently, when MS Dhoni took over as a captain, and the coach quotes him to say the first day he said, "If one person comes late, everybody in the team pays 10,000 rupees fine. Not
Okay.
just that person, but everybody in the
Right.
team." So guess what happened? There was no late coming from that day onwards. So what I
Okay.
think MS Dhoni did, and I think it's very, very inspirational. He said, "We are only as good as our team. If one person doesn't come in, which means we're not a team, right? We're only a team when everybody is together, right? And doing one thing together."
Mm.
So he said, even if one person is, so he conveyed a lot of things. He said, if one person is weak, all of you should help him. One person got a problem coming late, let's find out why. One person got a discipline problem, it becomes a problem for all of us. So I think with that one message, I think he conveyed so many things, and I think that's a phenomenal lesson for all of us.
Sure.
Inspiration.
Sure. Okay. So another question has come in. It says, in a crisis, would you believe that it should be the leader who should be the last man standing?
Absolutely, without any doubt. I don't. It's like a rhetoric question. You've seen the
Yeah.
movie Titanic,
Yeah.
and the captain standing there and getting everybody else onto lifeboats
I
and so on and so forth.
know.
He's still there, right? One of the things that really inspired me. I am also a big rock music fan, and one of my favorite bands is Pink Floyd. I don't know if you heard of them.
Yeah.
But they have an album called The Dark Side of the Moon, which was on top of the Billboard charts for 20 years. Anyway, one song there says us and them, and then he describes, and that song really moved me. And I'll just quote one line from that. So it is a song about the army marching, and it says, uh, "Forward he cried from the rear." It says a general there said, "Forward he cried from the rear," which means you're standing in the back.
Okay.
And the first rank just got blown up by the army ammunition. So that was way back. One of the things that inspired me to do a lot of things. Maybe another day
Sure.
I'll share with you.
Okay.
But definitely, it should be the last man standing, and lead from the front, without any doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Another question, again, which came in is they're talking about in a world of people having so much of ego and politics and trying to work their way around. Do you think communication as a style would work to build a leadership brand? And should it be subtle or should it be aggressive?
Neither, neither.
Okay.
You can't be
Okay.
very aggressive. You can't be subtle. See, it's very, very important. Communication, I think, is an extremely important attribute for anybody in any industry, most of all for leaders, uh, in any form. Communication in the form of writing, speaking, different kinds of body language communication, and so on and so forth. So I think it plays a very, very important role to very clearly communicate what you want people to do, what you stand for, how you communicate internally with your employees, externally to your business constituents, and
Yeah.
also to your management in trying to get something out. I think it's very, very important. And there are some times when you may have to get a little aggressive or you have to be a little subtle, but that would, I would say, is not a continuous process. It has to be depending on the situation that you need to sort of take that care.
Great. So, that's a wrap, Sundar. Thank you so much again for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, and thanks others for listening in to me. And
Yeah.
and if it's added some value, then I'm really grateful.
Absolutely. In fact, it was really nice to have you on this chat because not only do you come from the media and the entertainment industry, you really have worked, with some of the largest brands. You also work with brands as client. And the other thing is, as a leader, you've led large teams. You know what it means to put out yourself, and talk about those behaviors and style. So for me, it was fantastic to have somebody as a combination of these two. And I think people, not only like me, but a lot of others, had a lot of takeaways that you spoke about. Thank you again for this.
If it's been, then I'm very, very glad that if it's helped somebody. Thanks so much, Pawan, for having me today. Yeah, and thanks all of you for listening in.
Yeah, thank
Pleasure.
you,
Have a
everyone.
great weekend. Have a great
Thank
weekend.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.